What's going on, everyone? It's Sam. Welcome back to the channel. So here's my video explaining who is coming in the Shang-Chi post-credit scene and exactly how episode 3 of Hawkeye might have just confirmed this huge theory that people have been discussing for a while now. There's a ton of information to go over, so if you like Marvel, the MCU, comics, and everything in between, subscribe to the channel. But other than that, let's get into the video. Let's go. Episode 3 of Hawkeye was easily my favorite so far and full of Easter eggs, and although we even got our first hints at Kingpin, I was really intrigued in the Shang-Chi connection. Spoiler warnings, of course, if you haven't seen it yet, but the episode opens up with a young Echo and her father talking about certain sounds that things can make. Now, Echo in the comics was born deaf, which seems to be the case here in the MCU as well. Eventually in their conversation though, they end up stumbling on the topic of dragons. Maya asks him what does a dragon sound like, and then they talk about if dragons are real, which then the conversation follows with dragons live in a different world. Well, what if they learn to come into our world? Then that would make them stronger. Now, of course, Maya's father is talking about how she is the dragon in her own situation in her daily life, being deaf in her own world and also having to live in a world with sound. Two clashing ways of life is tough, and she has to be the dragon of her situation. But also, this is a really exciting Easter egg that is a direct correlation to Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. In the post-credit scene for Shang-Chi, him, Katie, Bruce Wong, and Captain Marvel are discussing that the Ten Rings are sending a message to a beacon through deep space in another dimension, along with how they detected something and who is potentially on the other side of this ping that the Ten Rings are sending. Now, when asked about who the post-credit scene was referring to, the director of Shang-Chi, Destin Daniel Cretton, said that all the clues were in the comics and that you didn't have to look too far to see what can be coming. He also said that there were cutscenes explaining the ring's origins and they left it out as a mystery for a later time. So if you know any comic stories in relation to this whole topic, this almost 100% confirms that the McLuhans are headed to the MCU. A quick overview, but the McLuhans are a shape-shifting alien race of dragons by appearance, who created the Ten Rings millions and millions of years ago. These rings are actually a power source for an alien spaceship, which eventually makes its way to Earth in a crash, and is later found by the Mandarin, who, in the MCU of course, is Shang-Chi's father Wenwu. The navigator of this ship was Fin Fang Foom, who is a supervillain hunting to gain access to the Ten Rings once again, and although it won't be Fin Fang Foom as Simu Liu suggested due to its unpleasant nature of story and Chinese culture, this is most certainly a nod to the McLuhans and a tease at their entrance to the MCU. A big question people may have is why the rings started suddenly acting as a beacon, and even though Wenwu had the rings for 1,000 years, they were never used in Ta Lo. They were only used in the outside real world on Earth, and it seems like in the post-credits scene explanation and so forth, the rings came from this dimension where the McLuhans are in relation to, so they could only ping its creators while used inside the dimension, and so this will spark the return for them to come and get them. You might also remember how in the movie The Dweller of Darkness, the evil-looking monster, bad dragon, whatever you want to call it, was able to manipulate the rings into Wenwu hearing things. Once again, relating back to what Maya's father said at the beginning of the episode, hinting that dragons may eventually come into our world and it would make them stronger because the McLuhans getting their rings back would of course boost their power. In Shang-Chi, his aunt while in Ta Lo said the reach of Ta Lo expands beyond this world into many cities, a direct correlation to the 7 cities in the comics. These cities are places that we will likely and eventually explore in the Shang-Chi sequels, meaning that they are all connected. One of them, which is Kunlun, a lost city in this pocket dimension, which also has a hidden dragon and other important things such as Iron Fist, who is the protector of the gate. And this gate also only opens up once every 10 years, similar to Ta Lo only opening up once per year. And so if you remember in the movie, the problem with the Dweller of Darkness was that they could not let it escape the dimension, meaning that it is possible though, and this was a precursor to what the McLuhans will do. They will cross over into our dimension or universe and come to Earth. Of course, the mystery of the Ten Rings is something that everyone wants answered, and even though we'll have to wait likely for Shang-Chi 2, this clip from Hawkeye, which I did not expect at all by the way, gives us a ton of information for what we can expect. It's very likely also that the McLuhans have had a bit of a redesign in the MCU, just like how the rings were, so they might look different, they might have more of a celestial type of importance to them. So just like how Eros is to our dimension, it's possible dragons like the Great Protector are the equivalents in that dimension. Overall, it seems like the MCU is also setting up Galactus, who actually predates the current universe in his origin. He comes from the universe before this one, and it almost seems like the McLuhans could have this same sort of background if that pocket dimension acted as a previous universe. It's tough to tell, but I'm just spitballing at this point. I'll do another video on a potential celestial war and how Eternal sets up the emergence of Galactus coming to Earth. In case you couldn't tell, there's a lot of insane cosmic threats coming to Earth real soon, so post all your theories about Shang-Chi, the Ten Rings, and McLuhans in the comments below, and let me know how you're enjoying the Hawkeye series so far. Be on the lookout for my West Coast Avengers setup video coming out next, and drop a like if you enjoyed, subscribe to the channel for all MCU movies, Disney Plus show coverage, and more. And other than that, I just want to say thank you. I'm another Marvel guy, and I'll catch y'all on the blip.